Deadpool wasn't just a superhero movie, it was an 11-year miracle fueled by illegal leaks, stolen costumes, and an actor who paid his writers out of his own pocket. From a budget slashed at the last second to a character swap that changed the Marvel Cinematic Universe forever, this R-rated phenomenon almost never happened. Here are 15 unknown facts about Deadpool. Fact 1.
I can't tell you, but it does rhyme with Pulverine.
For over a decade, the identity of who leaked the Deadpool test footage in July 2014 remained one of Hollywood's great mysteries. Only 4 people had access to the footage: Ryan Reynolds, director Tim Miller, and writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. Reynolds spent years playfully denying it, saying in 2016 he was only 70% sure it wasn't him. In 2018, he joked on social media that he was still searching for the person responsible. Finally, in September 2025 at the Toronto International Film Festival, Reynolds confessed to the crime, admitted he cheated a little, but knew people would be interested. When the footage went viral in 2014, Reynolds had a moment of panic while brushing his teeth, looking in the mirror, thinking he could be punishable by law. But the internet forced Fox to greenlight the movie within 24 hours of the leak. The test footage was created in 2012 using CGI at Tim Miller's animation company Blur Studio, with Reynolds voicing Deadpool. Fox initially rejected it completely. Reynolds knew the footage existed and that it was a perfect case study for how Deadpool could work, so he took matters into his own hands and changed cinema history forever. Fact 2.
I sense clowns.
People react to news of late-stage cancer differently.
Through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, a 13-year-old terminally ill fan named Connor McGrath from Edmonton requested to attend one of the special advanced screenings of Deadpool in January 2016. There were only 2 special fan screenings planned, one in New York and one in Los Angeles. When the Make-A-Wish Foundation looked into fulfilling Connor's wish, they discovered the severity of his illness prevented him from safely making the journey to either city. When Ryan Reynolds heard Connor's story, he didn't hesitate. Reynolds personally traveled all the way to Edmonton, Canada, and surprised Connor with a completely private screening of the finished film. Reynolds stated that Connor McGrath was the very first person ever to see the completed Deadpool movie, earlier than any critic, any studio executive, or even most of the cast and crew. Connor and Reynolds kept in regular contact over the following months. Tragically, Connor passed away a few months later. Reynolds paid tribute to him on his social media pages, honoring the young fan who loved Deadpool so much. This heartbreaking and beautiful gesture showed Reynolds' genuine character beyond the wisecracks and revealed how personally meaningful Deadpool was to real fans. Fact 3.
Made me ask twice.
Is the mask muffling my voice?
After filming wrapped on Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds took his costume home without asking anyone for permission. He literally just stole it off the set. Reynolds felt absolutely no remorse about the theft. As he later explained, after everything he'd sacrificed to get the movie made, leaked footage illegally, paid writers out of pocket, gave up his salary, fought for 11 years, he felt he deserved to keep the suit. When Fox executives discovered Reynolds had stolen studio property, they surprisingly didn't mind at all and let him keep it. Reynolds wanted the costume so he could continue doing charity work and Make-A-Wish Foundation visits as Deadpool. While filming the movie, Reynolds had regularly visited sick children via Make-A-Wish in full costume, staying in character to bring joy to dying kids. Keeping the suit meant he could continue that important work. The stolen costume became one of the most famous pieces of movie memorabilia that technically doesn't belong to the actor who wears it. Fox's decision to overlook the theft showed they understood how much Reynolds embodied the character, both on screen and off. Fact 4.
No.
Here's something you probably never thought about. Most of the male genitalia visible in Deadpool was digitally created in post-production. The film contains several sex scenes and a gratuitous full-frontal nude scene, but very few of those penises were actually real during filming. The visual effects team digitally inserted CGI penises into many scenes in post-production. In numerous countries with stricter censorship codes than the United States, these sex scenes were completely cut from theatrical releases. Any scenes where genitalia was visibly used alternative takes that deliberately obstructed the view, or the visual effects team simply used earlier builds of the footage from before the CGI penises were digitally rendered in. This created an absurd situation where the film was already rated for adults only, yet the penises still had to be removed for international markets. The entire premise is ridiculous when you think about it. Animators sitting at computers meticulously creating digital penises to insert into an R-rated superhero film. The fact that so much work went into digitally creating male genitalia for comedic effect perfectly captures Deadpool's commitment to pushing boundaries. They spared no expense making sure Wade Wilson's crude humor translated visually. If you want more videos like this, subscribe, like, and comment what movie you want us to cover next. Fact 5. For any scene where Deadpool isn't wearing his mask and Wade Wilson's scarred face is visible, Ryan Reynolds had to endure an absolutely brutal makeup process. Reynolds had to sit in the makeup chair for anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. Reports conflict on the exact duration, while makeup designer Bill Corso and his team painstakingly applied the full-body scarring prosthetics. The process was so elaborate and delicate that once the makeup was applied, Reynolds could not sit down, or he would completely ruin it. The scarring covered his entire body, not just his face, requiring extraordinary precision. Reynolds had to stand for hours between takes to preserve the makeup's integrity. Bill Corso went through several different designs before finally settling on the look that appears in the film. The design needed to look grotesque and disfiguring enough to justify Wade's psychological trauma and refusal to see Vanessa, but still allow Reynolds' natural charisma and expressions to come through. Every single makeup application was a fresh torture session. By the end of production, Reynolds joked he'd spent more time in the makeup chair than actually filming scenes. The physical discomfort Reynolds endured for the role added to the long list of sacrifices he made for Deadpool. Fact
Funny that
6.
I only ever see two of you. It's almost like the studio couldn't afford another X-Man.
Deadpool already had a minuscule budget by superhero standards, initially around $65 million, which was barely a third of what X-Men Days of Future Past cost. But right as filming was about to begin in March 2015, Fox dropped a bombshell. The studio told filmmakers they needed to slash another $7 million from their budget, bringing the final amount down to just $58 million. This catastrophic last-minute cut forced massive changes. Multiple major action sequences had to be completely deleted. An epic gunfight was scrapped entirely, which the film explains away with Deadpool forgetting his bag of guns in Dopinder's taxi. A planned motorcycle chase between Deadpool and Ajax was eliminated. Several characters had to be combined into single roles to save money. The villains Garrison Kane, Wire, and Sluggo were all supposed to appear as Ajax's enforcers, but budgetary issues, especially the expensive CGI required for Kane's cybernetic arms, forced them to be merged into one character, Angel Dust. Tim Miller later joked that he was good at making $1 look like 10. The constraints actually helped creativity. As Reynolds said, necessity is the mother of invention, and the tighter budget forced them to think outside the box, ultimately creating a more focused, character-driven film. Fact 7.
Soldiers of Fortune, drinks on me!
Ryan Reynolds gave up nearly his entire salary to keep the Deadpool writers on set throughout filming. When the already tiny budget came up short, Fox refused to pay for screenwriters Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick to be present during production for necessary last-minute rewrites and script adjustments. This was an absurd cost-cutting measure that could have destroyed the film's carefully crafted tone. Reynolds had worked with the writers for 6 years developing the script as a core creative team. He knew their presence on set was absolutely essential, so Reynolds took the little salary he had left. His original fee was reportedly $2 million, but had already dwindled as costs increased, and paid Reese and Wernick out of his own pocket to be there every single day. The writers confirmed this in 2016, saying Fox interestingly wouldn't pay for them to be on set, so Ryan paid from his own money. Reynolds didn't just let go of getting paid to make the movie happen, he actively paid others with money he didn't have. This wasn't just dedication, it was a calculated investment from someone who had spent over a decade fighting to make Deadpool happen exactly the way it needed to be made. Fact 8.
Dopinder.
Cool. Dead.
The taxi driver character Dopinder, played by Karan Soni, wasn't just a random name the writers invented. During a talk at Google, Ryan Reynolds revealed the heartbreaking true story behind the character's name. When Reynolds was in elementary school, he had a friend named Dopinder who he described as a really cool guy. Tragically, that friend was struck and killed by lightning when they were young. Naming the taxi driver character Dopinder was Reynolds' way of paying tribute to his childhood friend and keeping his memory alive. The character of Dopinder became unexpectedly popular, returning in Deadpool 2 with a much larger role. Fans loved his awkward interactions with Wade Wilson, and his increasingly disturbing personal revelations, like casually mentioning his romantic rival is tied up in the trunk of his taxi. What seems like a throwaway character name actually carries deep personal meaning for Reynolds. The tribute transforms Dopinder from just comic relief into something more meaningful, a way for Reynolds to honor someone who died far too young while making millions of people laugh. It's the kind of genuine, emotional gesture hidden beneath Deadpool's crude exterior. Fact 9.
Look away, child! Look away! Ah!
During Deadpool's extremely long development hell, the tone shifted radically multiple times as nervous studio executives tried to figure out how to make the film commercially viable. Director Tim Miller revealed that at various points during development, the studio was actively looking for ways to achieve a PG rating for Deadpool. A PG-rated Deadpool. Let that sink in. The character whose entire appeal is being an ultra-violent, profanity-spewing, fourth-wall-breaking anti-hero was nearly neutered into a family-friendly superhero. This wasn't the only absurd compromise considered. The original screenplay that Ryan Reynolds wrote back in 2004 was properly R-rated, but it became increasingly clear over the years that Fox demanded massive concessions if they were going to greenlight the film at all. The script went through numerous rewrites trying to balance the character's essence with studio mandates. Early drafts even included a joke where Deadpool's mask would be revealed as a store-bought Spider-Man mask turned inside out. Ultimately, the viral success of the leaked test footage in 2014 gave Reynolds and Miller the leverage to make the film they actually wanted. The overwhelmingly positive fan response proved audiences wanted an R-rated Deadpool, finally convincing Fox to stop trying to sanitize him. Fact 10.
You're right, beautiful. Red really is my color.
Creating Deadpool's iconic red suit was an immediate focus during pre-production. The production hired costume designer Russ Schinkel and his company Film Illusions specifically to create the perfect costume. Schinkel faced a unique challenge. Comic book art is famously over the top in terms of exaggerated physique and proportions. He had to balance that comic book aesthetic with reality and make something that looked authentic on a real human body. Critically, Ryan Reynolds did not wear a muscle suit underneath the costume. Director Tim Miller felt this, gave it a slimmer, more quintessential Deadpool look that was truer to the character's actual build, rather than turning him into a bulked-up action figure. The costume was also specifically designed with the film's extensive stunts in mind. The mask's eye areas were completely removable, so different versions of the eyes better suited for particular stunts could be swapped out without having to change the entire mask each time. When Schinkel finally presented the completed costume, both Tim Miller and Ryan Reynolds actually cried. They fought like hell to make this the most faithful comic book to movie adaptation fans had ever seen, and seeing that suit completed made it feel real for the first time. Their emotional reaction proved how deeply personal this project was. Fact 11.
You are...
Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
The filmmakers wanted to use a character called Negasonic Teenage Warhead purely because her name was so cool, but there was a massive problem. Negasonic was an incredibly obscure mutant who appeared in Grant Morrison's new X-Men run. She was a psychic with precognitive abilities who was introduced and then killed off within a few panels. The character barely existed in comics. Director Tim Miller wanted to completely change her powers from telepathy to making her a literal atomic warhead who could generate massive kinetic explosions. This change required official permission from Marvel Studios, since they couldn't just alter a character who originated in Marvel Comics. Tim Miller contacted Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige to negotiate. Completely by coincidence, Marvel desperately wanted to use Ego the Living Planet as Star-Lord's father in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but Fox owned those rights, so a deal was struck. Fox gave Marvel Studios the film rights to Ego the Living Planet, and in exchange, Marvel gave Fox permission to completely redesign Negasonic Teenage Warhead's powers and appearance. Years later, the comics themselves actually changed Negasonic to match her Deadpool movie version, giving her a shaved head, explosive powers, and making her a partner of Deadpool. The deal ended up benefiting everyone involved and changed both franchises forever. Fact 12.
Face is the stuff of nightmares.
Like a testicle with teeth.
You will die alone.
Ryan Reynolds and director Tim Miller had such intense creative disagreements during Deadpool's production that some days on set were extremely difficult. Reynolds admitted to GQ in 2016 that his passion for the project led to constant clashes. His vision for the film didn't always match Tim Miller's vision, causing significant tension. Miller focused on visual style and action sequences, while Reynolds obsessed over the humor and character moments. Eventually, they reached an agreement to respect each other's strengths. Miller would handle the visual filmmaking, Reynolds would control the comedy, but the fights took an emotional toll. Reynolds joked that there would be scenes where he's punching everyone and screaming profanities, then Tim Miller would call cut and just start weeping. Miller, who described himself as an easy cry, confirmed this. Reynolds also revealed that when something didn't work during a take, Miller wouldn't even call cut, he would just yell, "Wrong," from behind the monitor. These creative battles ultimately led to Miller leaving the Deadpool franchise before the sequel. David Leitch of John Wick fame replaced him for Deadpool 2. Despite their conflicts, Miller and Reynolds clearly respected each other and produced something incredible together, even if it meant they couldn't work together again. Fact 13. Deadpool has an unusual distinction among major blockbusters. There are absolutely no opening credits of any kind besides the 20th Century Fox fanfare. The title of the film doesn't appear anywhere on screen until the very end of the movie during the closing credits. This bold choice mirrors Deadpool's irreverent attitude toward conventional filmmaking. The opening sequence instead features the now iconic fake credits that scroll during the Frozen action scene. Things like, directed by an overpaid tool, produced by asshats, written by the real heroes here, and starring God's perfect idiot instead of actual names. The sequence pokes fun at Hollywood conventions while immediately establishing Deadpool's self-aware, fourth-wall-breaking personality. By refusing to show the title card until the end, the filmmakers signal that this won't be a typical superhero origin story. Deadpool demands your attention immediately without the safety net of familiar opening rituals. For the 2022 re-release, the 20th Century Fox logo was digitally replaced with the 20th Century Studios logo for consistency with the second film after Disney's acquisition. But that irreverent opening sequence remained untouched because it's so perfectly Deadpool. Fact 14.
Yeah, like I got bit by a radioactive Shar-Pei. Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds became aware of Deadpool in 2004 when a studio executive saw his performance in Blade Trinity and told him if they ever made a Deadpool movie, Reynolds was the only guy who could play the character. To prove his point, the executive sent Reynolds a stack of Deadpool comics to read. When Reynolds opened the very first comic book in that pile, he couldn't believe what he saw. The comic was Cable and Deadpool #2 from 2004. In that issue, Deadpool describes his scarred appearance by saying he looks like a cross between Ryan Reynolds and a Shar-Pei dog. Reynolds was literally referenced by name inside the comic book. The spelling was slightly wrong, but the reference was unmistakable. Reynolds immediately thought it felt like destiny. This wasn't just coincidence. It was fate calling him to the role a full 12 years before the film would be made. That moment created an unbreakable connection between Reynolds and the character. He fell in love with Deadpool instantly because the character already knew who he was. It's entirely possible the studio executive intentionally chose that specific issue to send Reynolds, knowing the reference would hook him forever. Either way, it worked perfectly. Fact
I had
15.
a nickel for every time I spanked it to Birdman Peters.
Sounds like you do.
Deadpool wasn't just successful, it was a phenomenon that defied every Hollywood expectation and changed the film industry forever. Made for a minuscule $58 million after Fox's catastrophic last-minute budget cuts, Deadpool earned $782.6 million at the global box office. It opened with $132.7 million in its first weekend alone, immediately becoming the highest-grossing opening weekend for an R-rated film in history. The film became the 9th highest-grossing film of 2016, despite being released in February, typically considered a dumping ground month for studios. It shattered the record for highest-grossing R-rated film of all time, until Joker surpassed it 3 years later. It became the highest-grossing X-Men film in the franchise. The film was banned in China due to graphic violence, yet still earned those staggering numbers without accessing the world's second-largest movie market. As Reynolds joked, it's rated R in America and rated fuck you in China. The film's success proved that R-rated superhero films could work commercially on the largest scale possible, paving the way for Logan and Deadpool's integration into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Tim Miller and Ryan Reynolds turned pocket change and stubbornness into one of the most profitable and influential comic book movies ever made. From illegal leaks to stolen costumes to paying writers out of pocket, Deadpool's journey to theaters was as chaotic and rule-breaking as the character himself. Ryan Reynolds didn't just fight for 11 years to make this film, he sacrificed his salary, broke the law, and proved that sometimes the craziest risks create the biggest rewards. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. See you in the next one.